Today we're going to be unboxing a brand new snake that we purchased, and I'm very, very excited about. Totally unopened box, right? We do open them. I'm at work and I want to make sure the snake is all right. So my brother unboxes them and checks them out and then puts them back in the box here for me so that I can do an unboxing and bring you this awesomeness that is in here. We'll also be talking about the specific morph this is, showing it off in other combinations, and talking about its potential in the ball python community as well. So without further delay, let's go ahead and open this and see what we got. Alrighty, let's go ahead and take a look. Like I said, this has obviously been opened, been here with us, so packaging is not how it came. The packaging was fine, by the way. Alrighty, drum roll please. He does not want to come out. He wants to go back in. This right here is a Blackhead Lesser Hydra, and Hydra is the morph I got it for. It being Blackhead is a big time bonus for me because I want to put this male into quite a few different clown projects, and he is, well, ready to go. And yes, a male. To the untrained eye, you might not even know this is a Lesser. The Blackhead and the Hydra are clearly changing some things from what a normal Lesser would look like. The Blackhead obviously brings in a lot of this beautiful shadowing and this darker color, especially the head, which is of course what it's named for. It's a much darker head, kind of a little bit of a blackish caramelish type color. The Lesser itself kind of brings it back and kind of flirts with this lighter type color, especially near the belly. You can kind of see here just how it has this like silvery type color. It almost looks like it's got sprinkles or glitter on it, and then it kind of fades from this glitterish type color into this yellowish cream color. Then you start getting the Blackhead influence where you get this fade into this deeper shadowing and like some browns and blacks in there, especially around where the pattern is. You see this deep black. The pattern itself, this is pretty much the Hydra doing this. Hydra, in my experience, especially when it's in combos, really just kind of shrinks the pattern into these planet-like patterns where you get some stretching like this here, and then some O's and dots with a lot of different variety. There's a bunch of granulation within the pattern. I really love the influence of what the Blackhead is doing with the Hydra. It really makes me excited on projects to do with this. Hydra is a pretty rare morph. It's not worked all that much, but it is an extreme look to it. And then one thing I didn't expect is this belly here. I talked about the silvers. It's on the belly as well. It's not as crazy as obviously a Confusion or anything like that, but you can see this like glimmering like silver on every single big scale that's on its belly. I have seen a lot of cool things with Hydra. A lot of it, which we'll show you today. Some of it that we've actually filmed and covered in the past from prior NARBC shows and such. I've been pretty enamored with the gene for a while, and the opportunity came up to get into this dude here, and I jumped on it. I kind of broke the rule in terms of something that it wasn't really planned for the year, but this opportunity to get into Hydra, I really couldn't pass it, and I definitely know how to pivot and make this work for sure. So I am very, very excited for this boy here. And you know, Lesser is a great gene. It is a very busy gene, and obviously being in the Bell complex, while I love Lesser clowns, I have a whole thing about that. That's not really where my interest is. My interest is in the Blackhead and the Hydra combination together. Just Hydra alone would have been a definite benefit, but the Blackhead being on top of it is a huge boon. There's a lot of different directions I want to go this year. I'm going to stick with the clown, which kind of makes the most sense. But again, it's something I'd like to work into my Monarch projects to see how that might look, albeit without the Lesser. But I would love the Blackhead to come along for every single thing that it goes into, because Blackhead works just so darn good. The Hydra morph itself is an incomplete dominant. First produced by Ben Rennick not all that long ago. There's not very many of them out there, and their price for a incomplete dominant is still pretty up there. The Hydra itself is definitely a pattern mutation first and foremost. There are little hints of shading. There's definitely some blushing, and the blacks seem to pop pretty well on just a single gene morph, but definitely what you're getting into this for is the pattern. And the pattern is pretty wonky even for just by itself. There can sometimes be some alien heads, but there's floating pattern all throughout the entire animal. It just seems to float at random all over it, whether it goes over the dorsal or the side. You get lots of loops and O's, lots of circular type pattern, and occasionally you do get an alien head here and there, but in general, throughout most of the animal itself, there's a lot of wonky pattern. There's definitely some very distinctive banding and distortion of the alien head, so to speak. And right around the neck, they say that there's always a jagged neck stripe on just the standard ones by themselves. Being an incomplete dominant, there is a super form, albeit it just seems to amplify the wackiness and wonkiness of the pattern. So there's more chaos and craziness going everywhere, which is a great combination for when you're putting it together with other morphs, in my opinion, because you have a lot of breaks in pattern. You can see here on many different combinations, however, it really does refine that pattern and bring in a nice, awesome shading and color. This looks very similar to the one we have, which is a Hydra Blackhead Yellow Belly Mojave. Very, very similar, quite frankly. The same type of fading going up into the back. I think that Hydra and Blackhead have an incredible reaction to each other, which is very, very nice. You can see near the belly, there's a lot of peaking of this whites and such like that too. There's kind of creeping up into the animal's color and pattern. And kind of sort of similar here with this Hidden Gene Woma Hydra Mahogany Het Clown. Obviously a different color palette here, so you're not getting quite the exact same, but even though Blackhead is not present, you still have a somewhat similar fading, albeit with a different color palette, and you still see a lot of this crazy pattern, these little floating circles throughout the entire animal, just all over the place, but still very, very busy and just so intense in how it's just so chaotic, yet clean at the same time. It's very obvious what you're looking at, but there's no rhyme or reason for all of these little dots just being all over the place, especially when you're looking at the top portion. Once it reaches like over halfway the side of the snake, it just definitely seems not clean. It's still kind of a granulated pattern, but down below it almost looks like it's a paint ball python where it's just smudged and smeared all over the place. So it's like you have a very big contrast even in just the pattern itself on the same side of the animal here. You can see here even on this GHI Hydra clown, it really just refines and creates these loops throughout the entire pattern, but yet the pattern is still back to being more busy. It's not as dispersed throughout the entire snake, and the sides seem to be washed out even more, although the blacks are still very present and prominent. The granulation is still very, very evident that you have a GHI here. One of the best ones I had ever seen, and in fact it was the first time I was ever introduced to the Hydra, was from Genetic Genesis at Schaumburg, and I was pretty well blown away. So much so that we gave it spot on our top 5 ball pythons of the show. This one here is a butter, otherwise the exact same thing as Lesser, Black Pastel Yellow Belly Hydra Clown. And now you see how it has taken that and stretched it out into these very distinct lines on the animal. I would actually like to see this without the butter and the pastel, which of course I do have one in there with Lesser, but it'd be very interesting to see Black Pastel Yellow Belly Hydra Clowns. Or in my case, of course, which I have a chance of creating in the future, would be something with Blackhead Hydra and Clown. That is kind of obviously where I would like to go with this, but of course combining this into many other different genetics while doing so. And in fact, one of the first things that I would like to see it into is I'd like to introduce red stripe into it, because I think that if I can bring some more of that rusty red color into the pattern that the Blackhead and the Hydra seem to create, especially in Clown or even just by itself, I think that that would be a really, really nice, beautiful animal to eventually create. What's so great about this is that I do have that lesser gene in that mix, so when I create this I could create mixtures with and without the lesser, and I like that idea of having that almost like golden graham cracker type look to it, like this animal has here. Very similar colors anyways as like the special Pompeiis, but I would definitely like to also get examples without that, so that I just get the Blackhead, so you can see this with that different color palette. That's why I kind of want to pivot and put it into my red stripe clown pretty much right from the get-go, so that I can maybe get that with a little bit more of that tinge of rusty red coming through. The head pattern is just insane to me. It looks like a little boomerang just on the side of its head, and that kind of goes back to maybe what they were saying with the Hydras having that kind of weird break right where the neck meets the head, how it's just kind of like jagged around there. Maybe that's the interaction there. But what's really exciting is that again, there's still so much that we can determine and do with this gene that's still very much in its infancy. So it's a very unexplored territory, so to speak, and I look forward to being part of that and kind of just seeing what I can do with the genetic and the awesomeness that I can create and the questions that I might be able to answer. Hope you enjoyed that one. I certainly did. I am very excited to see what we can do with Hydra and eventually bring that to you. If you'd like to check out our last unboxing video where we opened up a Confusion Clown and talked about that genetic, you can do that right here, or you can actually check out some of the walkthroughs we've done where you can see snakes just like what we showed you today in our Tinley Park walkthroughs right here.